Namaste, and so good to be here with you all. It feels like a long time, but it's wonderful to have this time together. That music was just absolutely beautiful and a hard act to follow, definitely. Um, but it really spoke to me. You know, if God is love, then I can be nothing else, and that was just totally on track with what I wanted to, funnily enough, what I wanted to speak about this evening, and really just to look at why do we go back from that um, recognition that I am love, and that everything I see is love, and everything I experience is love, beauty, joy, all of that appearing as all of this. Why do we go back from that perspective? What is it that seems to drag us back to the mind? And when I was really struggling with my own mind, there were certain times when I could seem to just drop certain thoughts, as I'm sure you may have experienced. And there were other times where it just literally seemed impossible. It seemed really as if I didn't even have a choice where to stay as the self, to remain as the awareness. And I really began to look at why that was. I got really interested in why that was the case. Why can some thoughts just be turned away from, just kind of brushed off? It's not true. And why do I pick some of them up and hold on to them for so long until they're literally causing so much pain that I have to drop them? And I really began to get curious as to how the mind works. I really turned a corner in just kind of the way I was interacting with the mind. And I really wanted to speak about that tonight because it was pivotal for me to change that. And I hope it kind of spurs something within you too. What is your inner dialogue about your mind? Is your mind the enemy? Is your mind the persecutor? Is it something that is there just to challenge you and push you to the limits of your endurance or sanity, perhaps even, as I'm sure you may have experienced? And it's easy to have those kind of perspectives when we've been suffering from mind for a very long time. And I know I felt that way. But when I really began to look at it, is it really my mind that's causing me suffering? Or is it the fact that I'm paying attention to it? Or is it maybe something even more simple than that, something even more primal than that? Could it be my attitude towards my mind? And it began to feel that there was something really important here for me to look at, spend some time looking at. And I want to really share what I found when I looked at this, because it was extraordinarily important and a massive breakthrough. So our attention is drawn to mind because we think what it's saying has importance to us, for us. So if we didn't think on some level, at least, that what mind was saying was relevant or important and even useful, then would we pay attention to thoughts when they come up? If we imagine somebody standing next to us telling us something that isn't really true, perhaps passing on a rumor or saying something malicious about somebody, would we listen to that? Would we listen to that person standing next to us? Would we entertain them? And why are we doing that with our mind then, if that's the case? If we wouldn't listen to somebody standing next to us, why do we listen to our own mind when it's saying something malicious about us and someone else? And for me, underneath all of this was my understanding, my idea that the mind was actually saying something true. That my mind when it talked about myself or other beings, when it talked about my life, my awakening, my fill in the blank, when it talked about anything, that what it was saying had some relevance to me. And when I really began to examine that, it just began to fall apart. And I began to lose this resentment that I had with my, against my own mind. And it was this resentment, this anger, this injustice, this feeling that it should not be tormenting me like this, that it shouldn't be still saying the same things. It was really holding it all in place. So looking at, does it really have any relevance to me what my mind is saying? And, boy, it sure seems to, right? It seems to have a familiar and also very relevant sting to it when it says those things like that we're not good enough, or that we're never going to wake up, or that some sabotaging thought comes up. And it was, funnily enough, one day looking in A Course in Miracles, where I came across one of the lessons where it said, and I'm paraphrasing, it might not be the exact words here, but it just said, my thoughts are meaningless. And I can't remember which lesson it was, but it hit me profoundly how true that statement was. And something shifted and opened up. My thoughts are meaningless. And up until that point, something had really been agreeing inside that they're very relevant. I really have to listen to them. But of course, I didn't want to listen to them. So I had this push-pull thing going on that was keeping this, fueling the thought stream. I don't want to listen to you, but you have something important for me to say, so I'd better listen. Of course, all this was going on a deep level. And then I came across this one sentence. Of course, there's so much more in A Course in Miracles that is amazing, but this one sentence, still remember today. My thoughts are meaningless. And I really got interested in why would that be important? Why did that have such a tug on my heart? Why did it seem suddenly very urgent to investigate that statement? And it led me down a path of self-inquiry to try to understand what I really was, and was my mind actually talking to me? Even here is this core assumption that I've been working upon, that this voice in my head was giving me guidance and was relevant to what I was trying to do, what I'm waking up and, moving through life in general. And when I discovered that I couldn't find Helen as a separate being, I really began to, as shocking as that was, I really began to understand this statement. My thoughts are meaningless. And I won't say that they instantly all lost their power overnight, but about 80% of the impact went out of them. And then it became easier to see which one of those thoughts I still believed were meaningful to me, and look at why. And it became clearer and clearer that everything my mind is saying is based on this idea that I am a separate being moving around inside a world with all these other beings and all these other things. And that my mind is constantly trying to assess the situation, get one up on the prepare for, somehow work with the situation, the experience that's happening in this moment, by constantly trying to talk itself into an advantageous position to get the most out of this moment. And that it can never really achieve that. That became very, very clear, because it's talking about beings that don't exist. It's talking about things that don't exist. And this is why my thoughts are meaningless. This is why suddenly I didn't seem to have to listen to them so much. And it became clearer and clearer that when I was listening to my mind still, it's because I hadn't really seen, at least in this area, about these thoughts, that it was talking about a fictional tale of me and these other beings. And whether my mind was talking about myself or talking about someone else or remembering something embarrassing that happened to me 20 years ago or projecting into the future, drumming up some old memory, trying to feel better about some old memory, something that went wrong, getting angry over someone who has done some wrong to me or something. That all of that, and just all of it, is based on this idea of myself and others that literally didn't exist. And the more I checked out with this self-inquiry, that I couldn't find this person, this legendary person that the mind was constantly talking about and criticizing and judging and analyzing. And when it took a break from that, it was doing it with others, as I'm sure you may have experienced. And then I judged myself for judging others, and around it goes. It just became clearer and clearer that it was just talking utter nonsense. And then it became suddenly really important to keep on seeing that I was not actually a separate being, using that as my reference point, using that as my the place where I was going to make a stand, that I couldn't find a separate being when I actually looked. And if I wasn't a separate being, then could I really be sure that anyone else was? Could I really be sure that anything that my mind was saying or any perspective I had as a separate being was true? Could I really be sure of any of it? And, at first we don't like to have our worldview challenged in this way, do we? We fight to protect our view of ourselves and others. But if you find yourself in a group such as this, you've got to the point where that's just too uncomfortable now. It's too painful. So how meaningful are your thoughts to you? And what are the meaningful thoughts that we're still listening to? And why are we listening to them? Not from a critical perspective, but really just why are we listening to them? There must be some idea inside somewhere, some sense that what the mind is talking about is true. And if you really get this, it just kind of pulls the rug out from underneath the mind. And it left me with no way to reference the mind for anything true. That sounds like a very profound thing to say, but it was just a very ordinary realization in a way that I didn't have to push my mind away. I also didn't have to listen to it because it was just a voice talking in my head. It was just a voice talking in my head. It was just a voice talking in my head. It wasn't any different than any other voice I hear externally. And the more I began to see my thoughts are actually meaningless, the more I began to experience the spaciousness of my being, the more the cycle just kind of got reinforced. The mind is only talking about what it thinks is happening. My mind is talking about what it thinks is going on in reality. And at the very moment I begin to perceive actual reality, that I'm not actually separate to anything, even if I've just seen that for a few seconds, or even if I've just accessed the silence of my being, where there isn't anything or anyone to talk about, or even if I've just touched upon some stillness inside, where my mind doesn't even want to really move from that place, it'll have some impact upon my reference point. So something that I'm saying is resonating with you. Maybe there's something here to look at. That, have you really taken on what it means? Have you really allowed it to deepen inside? what it really means if you can't find a separate being. What does that mean then for everything that our mind is talking about? Is there a cheat to awakening where we can kind of undo our ability to pay attention to every thought? Or do we have to work through them all systematically and disbelieve them? Or can we look at it generally and say, well, if the mind's starting a reference point isn't true, that we're a separate being, where does that leave everything else? And for me, there is something very scary about investigating this, but also really exciting. Some energy inside said, no, you really should not look at this. Do not look at this. Do not go there. And something else was really just burning to find out. What does it mean if nothing that my mind has ever said to me is true? Yes, thoughts are true in the relative perspective. If my mind says my cup of tea is hot, it's relatively true, isn't it? But absolutely, there's no true thought, because everything that mind is talking about does not exist separate to you or outside of you. And for me, that just brought a quiet dread inside, but also a stunning peace, a stunning peace. So much peace that I could even just allow this dread inside. Something was flailing around madly inside, going, yes, but yes, but yes, but my whole life has been based on this story of me. My history, my failures, my successes, my dreams, my goals, all of that. And maybe you can feel in what I'm saying that I wasn't pushing my mind away in this. It wasn't, okay, my mind's talking nonsense, it should go away. It was like I was really seeing my mind for the first time, really seeing it. Like, it's not actually saying anything true, really. Actually, everything it's saying is not relevant to me, does not apply to me. It's talking about some fictional character that has never been. And all the things that I have to undo and fix about myself and grow into and all of that stuff suddenly seemed less and less relevant. And that simple sentence, my thoughts are meaningless, changed my entire life. I mean, I must have been ready to really hear it, because I'm sure I've read similar things before and ran away for many years. Didn't want to entertain that idea. That all my thoughts are meaningless. They're talking about things that don't exist. And if that sentence brings up some fear inside, it's okay. It's okay. There's this huge myth, isn't there, that no awakened being ever felt scared by such a realization that there was only peace, love, and joy. Of course, our mind, our egoic sense of self, is going to feel extraordinarily uncomfortable by such a realization. Of course, it's not going to want to engage in that. But we can also foster a curiosity into that. So I wanted to share that with you because it was, I was reminded of that very lesson today, and it just occurred to me how much that one sentence changed my life. And of course, it was a combination of everything that happened leading up to that point. And I can't really remember a single other word out of the whole Course in Miracles, except for that. I've read it many times, but that one sentence still resonates within my being. And every now and again, it just hits me even deeper. So we're only suffering where we're believing our thoughts are having relevance or meaning to us. And what's the simple way out of that is to see what you really are. That when I actually look, And we can do it right now if you want to. When I try to find this separate being that has been advertised as me, this person that needs and wants things and all of that, can I actually find it when I look? What do I find when I look? And we can find our body, we can find thoughts, emotions, all going on inside this body. But where are you and what are you? Can you find this separate being? It might seem to be separate, feels like, seems to be, but when we really actually look at what we are, the first time I ever did this, there was just this emptiness. And I don't mean like profound, peaceful emptiness. There was just blank, void, absence of a person, a space in which there was no person. And it was very shocking that everything I thought and had referenced, it was just completely swept away to a large extent by seeing that. But then love will ask the question, what am I then actually? If I'm not this person, after we've got over the shock of seeing that, what am I then actually? Is this blank just blank? Or is it something else? Could it be something more important than anything else I've discovered, anything else I have come across or will ever come across? And what can our mind say about that? Is there anything at all that our mind can say that holds any relevance to the nothingness, the silence of our being, the not a thing yetness? And how would our mind really know and measure progress anyway in this area? So I'll just invite you to check it out and see if you can find, and if you've done it before and you haven't found a separate being, the more times we do it, the more our conviction grows that our mind is really not talking to us. And what would our life be like if we really got that deep in the heart, that my mind is not talking to me, it's talking to who it thinks I am, it's talking to other thoughts, it's talking to the thought constructed self, it's talking to a subdivision of itself, it's talking to an echo. It's not talking to anybody, it's just talking. Constantly trying to analyze and assess where it's at in getting what it wants based on false information that we are a separate being. And there is just such a joy that comes from deeply realizing my thoughts are meaningless. And understandably, of course, there might be some thoughts that you're having or have had recently or will have in the next few days that seem very meaningful. But there is an invitation in that, isn't there, too? Does this really apply to me? Does this really have relevance to me? When I look at what I actually am, my mind's reference point becomes irrelevant in that way. Not wrong, just irrelevant. Like if you wanted to learn Spanish, you wouldn't pick up a book on French, would you? Because it would be irrelevant. It's not wrong, it's just irrelevant. It's not useful for what you're trying to learn and understand. And your mind fades into the background of your experience, becomes quieter and quieter as you're giving it less and less relevance, as there's less and less of this push-pull going on. I need to listen to it, but I don't want to, is what we're all usually doing. So check it out next time. See when it says something that feels unpleasant, check it out and see if it is talking to you. Let's see if we can not just accept that it is the enemy to be gotten rid of? Can we go a little deeper? Can we lose this resentment that our mind is disturbing our peace? And can we look and see, well, is that so? Or is it really that I think it's talking to me and that I have to listen because it's talking to me? If it's talking to me, I have to listen because it might have some important information. But if it's just talking, if it's no more relevant than the radio playing quietly in the kitchen or the TV that's just spitting out old reruns of same old shows, you don't feel you have to pay attention to that. So why do we have to pay attention to our mind? You can find out who your mind is talking to quite quickly, and you can find out if it's really talking to you or saying anything useful and relevant about you quite quickly, and then keep coming back to that seeing again and again as your reference point. And for me, there became this certainty: I will not budge from this seeing, that it is not talking to me, especially when it's really, really insisting. My mind is insisting that it really is talking to me, and it really has something very important that I need to listen to, I need to reference. Okay, so didn't really mean to talk for that long, but apparently I did. So I see, Sally, you have your hand up. Did you want to?
Yes, this topic is so helpful. So thank you so much. And it's further integrating a realization that came to me just this morning, actually, in meditation. It was a huge insight. I want to share the insight, but I also am hoping that you might expound on it a little bit more. The insight that came through my meditation this morning was I had a memory come up of being at a funeral, and then I was with family, and one of the family had like this adorable little 1 year old. And I just found myself on the floor because she was on the floor. She was, walking and crawling. And I'm here in a funeral, this setting where it's supposed to be somber and, someone just died. So, and then I'm on the floor, all excited and giddy and happy and playfully adoring this baby. And then I notice the my relatives, that I've known forever, and there's this look of disapproval on their face. And
Mm,
I feel this angst in my heart. And what I would label it, if I could label it, would be I felt judged in the moment. So in the
yeah,
meditation this morning, what came through was that emotion is so familiar for me because I've felt it so many times in my life. But what I would do is quickly, like in this instant, correct my behavior. So
yeah,
I got up off the floor and I was like doing what I think should be the right thing. But what I noticed today with the insight was, oh, that feeling was a lie. And here's why: because their judgment about me doing something wrong, because that was the lie I was believing.
mm,
Whether they were actually thinking those thoughts, I do not know. But that's how I interpreted it. So there was one lie there. The other lie is if they were judging me, and then that feeling sensation I get in my heart area where I feel like I'm being judged. Well, but what never has, for whatever reason, has never occurred to me that that feeling in my heart is actually a lie, because it comes from the thought, the in the moment agreeing with as if what they're saying or thinking about me is true.
yeah,
I never saw that before today. So
yeah,
now I see, I totally 100% understand, see, and get where you're coming from with the mind and how the thoughts, because I've been doing the work, Byron Katie, the work.com, for
hmm,
years now. So I get that. But the little bleep on the radar for me, the missing link seemingly was leaving my feelings.
Yeah.
But what I learned was the feelings come from the thoughts. But here was the missing link that I got today for the first time was I was automatically believing their judgments about me.
Yeah.
And that felt sensation in my heart. I automatically believe that too. And
Yeah.
then the action I would take would come from that lie. And then I just compound the problem over and over and over. And then here I am with that, what Regina Dawn Akers would call the I am bad belief. And I'm
Yeah.
literally fortifying that I am bad belief and that guilty, I'm guilty. Oh, look at me. I'm down on the floor having a good time with a baby when I should be all somber and not acting like,
Yeah.
childlike
Exactly.
in the
Yeah.
middle of a somber moment. So I don't know what other deepenings that maybe like an expounding upon this whole revelation that came to me that actually feelings can be lies too. Like
Yeah.
I'm literally lying to myself in that moment.
Mm.
So there you go.
It's beautiful that you've kind of seen that, right? And I remember something very similar that at every single point that I could remember in my history as a separate being, when someone disapproved of me in some way, I would change myself to fit in with their projection of what they wanted me to be. So much so, and I'm sure this is everybody's story, that I couldn't remember who I was. As like I became so detached from who Helen was and what she liked and loved to do and wanted, because I'd become this kind of chameleon that would change shape in every situation I was in. And I'm sure everybody has had experience of that because of this initial lie that you pointed to so beautifully, that who I am in this moment is not good enough, not who I'm supposed to be, or in this situation, who others expect me to be, which all kind of rolls into that same thing, doesn't it? That we take that on, and this feeling, this horrible feeling that we get then right here, isn't it? That I'm not adequate. I'm just not who I need to be. It's so believed and produces such a feeling inside that we will do anything to not feel that again. So we try to preempt what people want from us, so that we don't have the same situation again. So we end up with all these ways of being that are based on what we think people want from us. And by that point, we've usually lost touch completely with our actual self. I have no clue what I want to do in this situation. I was out one day and somebody asked me if I wanted tea or coffee, and I just couldn't answer the question, a simple question. I didn't even know what I wanted, whether it was tea or coffee, because the first thing I wanted to come out of my mouth was, what's everybody else having? I'll just have what everyone else is having. And it hit me right then, exactly what you're talking about, that this I am bad feeling, as Regina would say, it's instilled upon us. I'll only give you approval if you behave the way I want you to behave, right? And then in that we lose, or I'll give you love or respect, or I will condone your being. We lose our authenticity then, don't we, step by step? And that's what we're finding on this pathway back to reality, so to speak, where I remember one time feeling that sting in there, and I just resolutely, I'm not feeling this way again. And it came down to realization that every time I reference either my mind or my mind's external voice as another being, I will feel this way to some degree. And every time I reference my own self, what I know to be true and can experience, I will feel how I want to feel. And it became really important then for me to hang on to, just to see, like you said so beautifully, like I don't even know what they're thinking about me. I can't figure that out. Although my mind's constantly trying. And in the end, if I don't like myself, then who else is going to like me? If I can't figure that out myself and find my way back to that. So there's a huge piece of the puzzle that you've seen there, isn't it? Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, lovely. So Zoe, when you're ready.
Thank you, Helen. Wow. When I sit with you, I find that it's just so easy to drop into stunning peace and spaciousness.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And this, yeah, today it was just so clear. My thoughts are meaningless, as they refer to something that doesn't exist. And as I, work with your teachings and listen to your satsangs, it just all becomes clearer and clearer. And I was listening to Transcending the Mind this morning when I was walking. And that whole thing about the lie that excuse me, Sina.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just said.
It took me a while too.
Yeah, the feeling. What comes up is the feeling of saying, "Don't feel me," but what I am absolutely has the total ability to feel this. Yeah. And gosh, but what I was thinking too when you were speaking is the Wizard of Oz popped into my mind. The guy behind the curtain going, "No, I'm the great powerful Oz, don't look behind the curtain," and then with your guidance, looking behind the curtain and finding this stunning piece that holds everything and does everything. And it just, this is more just gratitude. Thank you. It's like I want to laugh and cry at the same time. And as the illusion just becomes thinner or whatever, I look and I guess there's starting to, it seems like there's somewhat of a breakdown, like, well, of course, everything is me. Sometimes it still seems like there's separate objects, but that's becoming fainter, especially with your, the last meditation, the zooming out. Well, of course, it's all me. Boom, there it is. So anyway, yeah, just huge thank you. And thank you for this. It just gets clearer and clearer. Thank you.
Thank you. I loved what you said. It was beautiful. And I actually watched The Wizard of Oz again after I'd really kind of seen what I was, and I never realized just how many metaphors there are in that movie for awakening. It was like, oh my goodness, it's been right in front of me all the time. It's everywhere, I suppose, isn't it? But yeah, it just gets thinner and thinner, that illusion, doesn't it, as you keep looking and seeing. And that reference point of mind, where we go from absolutely having to listen to it seemingly to it's just not relevant anymore. And that isn't an all-in-one. Well, for very few of us, it happens all at once. Most of us, it's a gradual process. I don't think I'd want it all at once, actually. That would be quite a shock. So yeah, but I'm really, really happy to hear that it's getting better for you. And I appreciate your sharing, and just keep doing what you're doing. It just gets clearer and clearer every day, simpler and simpler. Wonderful. Thank you. Would anyone else like to ask anything or share? We have some time left. Shauna, yep.
Hi, Helen. Thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate
it. Thank you for being here.
You bet. And Sina kind of stole my thunder from me. This is exactly what I was going to ask. I know, it's so cool, Sina. So it's the thoughts are meaningless, but it's the feelings that come up that make me believe the thoughts more. So for me, it's recognizing that I've given the feelings meaning too, over and over and over. And it's become a habit, a groove in my brain. So what I'm learning to do is feel for the vibrational energy of that feeling. Is that what I want to feel for the rest of my life? Is it suffering or is it peace? Which do I want to feel? And then don't we have to make that decision not to listen consistently in each moment until we don't?
Yeah. And that decision gets becomes the most important thing, doesn't it? It becomes more and more important, and it's chosen more and more often. And then at some point it's just kind of continuous and becomes a habit to do that. And it became really clear to me that my body is always giving me real-time feedback of what I am paying attention to. And if I'm feeling bad in any way at all, it's because I'm referencing something other than what I can know to be true about myself or, other beings or whatever. And the worse I feel, the greater the lie I'm believing about myself, so. And the shame, the kind of I am bad, the shame that we're talking about here in this session, it is so far off what is true, isn't it? I am not adequate. I am bad. I am unworthy, and all of that is so far south of what is true really for us that we can feel that. We can feel that drop in frequency, can't we? It's so very different to what is real for us right now if we tune into what we actually are, if we recognize what we actually are. And that is a guidance system that never lies. if we pay attention to it. We've just learned not to, haven't we? We've become very good at avoiding that. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And even though she stole your thunder, it's always good to hear again and again. Thank you. Okay.
So real quick, Helen. So the feeling isn't true, but it's true that I've been believing a lie about myself. And that feeling is an indicator.
Yeah. And the worse the feeling, the greater the current thought I'm believing, the greater the distance from it to the self, or the more untrue. So when I'm not believing any thoughts, I feel great. When I'm believing a few thoughts, I feel okay. When I believe something that's really the polar opposite of what's true, I feel terrible, really diminished. And it cuts off all the, well, not all of it, but a lot of the life force of the body and really lowers the vibration. And our body is saying, "Ooh, this doesn't work for me. Can we change the channel here?" Yeah, wonderful. Of course, we have to learn to listen to that. That's what took the time for me. Wonderful. Does anyone else want to share something or ask a question? Well, maybe we can just spend a few moments together and we'll just sit quietly together. That would be a nice way to wrap it up this evening or this afternoon, wherever you are. So let's just relax into this moment. Let's take some time. And you can do this with your eyes open or closed. It's absolutely fine either way. Let's just be with ourselves in this moment. Let's do what we were talking about, actually, where we're just listening to ourselves. Listen, whatever is happening for us right now, that we're experiencing right now, let's just spend a few moments honoring that. Let's be with that. Let's practice this authenticity of referencing ourself rather than any external voice or internal voice. Let's spend a few moments. And what does that mean? Really, it just means to let yourself be as you are. So whether you have empty mind or noisy mind, whether you're feeling good or bad, whether you're confused or clear, whether you're peaceful or disturbed, we can just let that be right now. Let's just spend a couple of minutes experiencing what it's like to not be at war with yourself, to not be in conflict with your own self. Just giving yourself permission to exist exactly as you are right now. What does that feel like? What does that, let your body feel that, let it resonate through your body. I am as I am in this moment. Let's not put any demands upon ourselves. Let's not be a work in progress. Let's reference only what we can know to be true, which is that eternal being that is. Whatever experience we're having, simply whatever experience we're having. Just allowing this to wash over your mind and your body, your emotions. Who I am right now is enough. Who I am right now is love, is complete. Who I am right now is valued, appreciated. Just allowing yourself to enjoy the feeling. Let your body feel it. There is nothing wrong with you, and there never could be, ever. Out of perfection rises perfection. Out of completion is only completion. Out of love, only love. Everything else is a lie we've been telling ourselves that we can let go of right now. Experiencing ourselves without any baggage or burdens. Just bathing in this self-recognition, self-love. Just allowing this love to seep into your heart, into your mind, into your body. Inviting it in. Wherever it touches, blame and judgment disappears. Just letting yourself be as you are, authentically you. You are a sculpture created, sculpted out of perfect love. It is my wish that you always feel this loved, that you always feel this valued, that you always give this to yourself first, that you recognize your own beauty, your own intelligence, your own perfection, and that that becomes more important than any other voice that you may hear. Thank you. Namaste.